Hi again, everybody. It's JPierce again at _JPierce on Instagram. I've got another image tutorial for you guys. It's this fantastic looking bay. I called it bay. It's got a little man standing here in the foreground in front of this cave, and if we go zoom out, we can see we've got a cave. And we're standing maybe on the edge of an island out looking over the water with some islands scattered in the distance and a beautiful sunset and even a little planet hidden up here. So before we get started, I just want to say thank you to those guys who have started pledged to me on Patreon, and just wanted to say thank you to Tyler and Kirk and Martin for becoming my first 3 patrons, and it's pretty awesome, you guys. I'm really happy that you guys are supporting me in making these tutorials and continuing to make my artwork. It's a really fun way for us all to interact, and if you have any suggestions on benefits you'd like to see for patrons, if that would help you support me, some ideas would be requests for tutorials, my project files, displacement textures that I make, and or social media shout outs. So just let me know in the comments if there's things that you guys would like to see that would help you, encourage you to become a patron. So with that out of the way, let's get started with this image. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump into Cinema. And believe it or not, we're going to start with a torus again, and we're going to use the torus to build the walls of our cave. I like to use a torus because the UVs on it are easy to work with. And I'm going to go ahead and grab a rock texture right away as well. I'm going to use this rock number 14. It's a good one. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to turn the torus upright first. We'll do that by changing the orientation to Z+, and then I'm going to make it somewhat thicker and go ahead and increase these segments by a lot, maybe 150 by let's see, maybe 90, and we'll look at it under hidden line, and that seems like a good number of segments for us to start with, and because we're going to be in somewhere around here, and I want to sculpt on this a bit just to get the form a little bit closer to what we want it to be. So I'm going to make it editable, and I'm going to grab our trusty sculpting brushes, and the first one I'm going to use is this grab brush. And I'm going to use this, I'm going to increase it by a lot and just start pulling out these edges to kind of square it off and shape it into something a bit more like the mouth of a long square cave. And that's pretty good already. So I'm going to set up my image aspect ratio to be 1080 by 1350, and come in here with the camera and get it to be, you know, right around here somewhere. We'll be good, because I'm going to I want to see a little bit of the walls on all sides, and maybe I just need to pull this edge out some more. We wanted to have a nice sloping sort of ceiling. I'll pull this one down, and I need to sculpt on the other side. And let's play with some pull brush, add some more texture, a little bit of wax brush, and let's go back to Gerard. This way you can see the amount of texture I'm adding. Just very light details that'll mostly be obscured by our texturing, but this will help to just sell it a little bit more. So that's pretty nice. And now I just feel like I want to elongate it a little bit, so I'm just going to do that with the scale. Let's just stretch it out a little bit. And we'll come in somewhere around here. I'm going to switch to camera mode. And I'm going to set up a camera right here. Cool. Okay. So now I'm going to apply our rock material. And I'm going to go ahead and just bring in a sky. I think I'll start with a daylight, actually. Okay, so I'm going to have a daylight in here, and I'm going to rotate it so it's facing towards us, because I want my sky in the background to be casting a lot of light down in here. So let's get the live viewer up and running. Cool, and I'm going to switch back to hidden line. And it looks like I need some more tiles, so go 3, then we'll go 3 here and 1 here. Cool. And let's see, I'm going to open up my node editor. And if you're ever having trouble docking these and you're trying to figure out how to get them to be tabbed like I have here, you just have to drop it right on top of the other tab and then it'll tab. Took me a long time to figure that one out, but we'll go ahead and increase this displacement. 65, 85, maybe 75. Okay, that's cool. So now we can be here inside our cave. Looks pretty sweet. We've got our light coming down in from, it's going to be from over the horizon over there, and I think I went too high on my displacement, so we'll go back down to 50. Cool. And now I'm going to drop in a water plane, and we'll start this at 4,000 by 4,000, and we can go bigger if we need to. And because this is going to be way down below, way down, we want to generate a lot of depth in terms of where our water is going to be living, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to set up my views to be in a 4 view, and just adjust them like that so that I can see what I'm doing a little better. Okay, and I'm just going to zoom out and drag this plane, down here, because we don't need it to be anywhere in front. So now we've got a nice distant point here, and I'm going to get a water material. I'll show you what that looks like. I just have a noise set to Perlin with these settings, and a transform node on the noise, and then I have a scattering medium with these colors and these settings. We've got it at 1, 4, 0.5, It's a pretty simple water material. So we'll go ahead and apply that. And now we've got some nice water down here. And I'm going to go ahead and bring in an Octane sky. And I'm using another HDRI from NoEmotionHDRIs.net. And the one I'm using for this one is called 725C. Now I want to make sure that in my daylight I'm enabling mixed sky texture. This will allow me to combine the sunlight with the HDRI sky. So I think I have my sky rotated around a little bit, somewhere over here. And then in the UV transform, I think I had it scaled up just a bit. And then I'm gonna rotate the Y just down to clip off that bottom. And I think I want to just go ahead and line up where my sun is. I want the sun to be, you know, from right there. Or maybe I can cheat it around the edge like that. I think I like that. And I think my camera's a little too far away. I just want the edges here of my cave. And I'm going to press Shift V and enable these black bars with tinted border. Set it to 80%. So that I can see where my image is going to be cropped by my aspect ratio. And I think I'm going to cheat this down and make it a little more squat. And now we can go in and refine a little bit. We use the grab brush again and just push this edge up some more and pull this edge out and maybe shift this one down some more and this one over. You know, nice natural looking feel. We don't want it to look like a, you know, like it was made from a tourist primitive, which it was. So this is a great looking start to our scene. We have our cave, our water, our sky behind. I'm gonna click on our sky again, and under the image texture I'm gonna tweak the gamma just a little bit. So just by setting it to 1.2, so 1.1 is there, and if you see as I go up in the gamma we get more saturation and more contrast out of the sky, and it looks really fantastic. And the more you push it, the richer it gets, but that's way too far. So we'll try somewhere around here, maybe 1.5. That's good, and maybe we can get away with a little bit more of the sky, and we can hide these elements with our islands. So we'll go up maybe just to right around here somewhere. So it's looking like a really nice start to our image, and let's go ahead and do the next step. I just actually just want to duplicate my torus because I don't have a need to sculpt another rock. So I'm just going to drag it forward in space and then drag it down and just position it somewhere right here, because I already did the sculpting on this, so there's no real point in doing it a second time. So I'm going to add an Octane scatter object, and I'm going to add a forester multiflora, and I'll put that multiflora in the scatter. I'm going to turn off change materials, and I'm going to use I'll probably use, maybe we'll try this one. And I'm going to go get a leaf texture. This is my generic leaf texture. It's just an image from the Forester library, and I have it going through 2 color corrections, which I'm going to set now. I want that gamma there, and this gamma here, and maybe tweak the hue a little. And then being mixed together with a random color in a universal material, and having that mixed texture plugged into albedo, specular, and transmission. So that looks cool, and I think, let's see, I don't like this necessarily too much right here, so maybe we have some different rocks here. So we'll try it with a different rock material and see if that'll give us some extra details. Because I want to scatter some plants on here, but this rock is looking a little flat, so we'll try a different material. And that looks pretty neat. It looks a little better. Maybe we'll increase the tiles. We'll go 6x2. 6x1 actually looked pretty good. We can leave it like that. I think that's pretty neat. And let's go ahead and set our scatter to surface and apply our torus. And we'll apply our leaf texture to our plant. And our plants are way too big, so let's bring them down. And it is a pretty cool looking plant. So let's increase the count a bunch. We'll go up to 6,000. And let's add a MoGraph effector random. Now we'll turn off the position, set the scale to around 0.5, and the rotation to 900 in the H. And maybe we'll give it, 25, 25. So that's pretty neat. I think this is too high. We'll go with 0.3. So that looks pretty good. We've got our plants up in here, and let's start filling in the rest of this background. So first thing I'll get is going to be a Forester tree, and we'll pull it out in space, and I want it to be down here. I'm going to put a couple palm trees around the edge of this. So let's get a palm tree. I like to use this beach palm, it looks nice. And I'd rather have my leaf texture on it. And let's go ahead and scale it down some. It's way too big. Maybe somewhere in that range. Probably a little bit too big still. Because what really helps sell the scale is the sizing of everything, right? Because if the things are too big, then everything else looks like it's too small. So I got one palm tree there, and I'm just going to instance it by selecting it and then selecting instance. And once I have an instance, I want to use render instance because that'll help Octane to calculate it faster. I'm going to rotate and move it over here just a bit and slide this one down some. And then we'll do one more copy just over here. Alright, cool. So not a lot left to do in this image. I mean, this is really a very simple one, you guys. So I'm just going to use a landscape object and pull it back in space, scale it up and bring it down some. And I think I'll reuse this rock number 15. That'll work just fine for us. And now I can duplicate my scatter. And I can add, I'll copy my palm tree. And then I'll take the Octane scatter and apply the landscape to this, because right now they're all right up in my face. So we got way too many. We'll go down to around 250. Cool, and they're too big, so now that looks good, but we got a bunch that are sitting down in the water. So we're going to use our plane effector trick. So MoGraph effector plane. I'm going to set it inside the water and reset its position so that I know that the Y position is perfectly aligned with the water. And then I'll set the scale to -1 and the fall off to linear and orientation to Y+, and then the Y size to 5. Now I have to apply it to my scatter. And there we go. So now it's clipping off all those unwanted ones that are growing down under the surface of the ocean. So now I can play around a bit with my landscape, and it's peeking out there a little bit. And I can see that they're kind of going in a bunch of different directions, and I'm not really a fan of that. And if that's a look you're going for, that's fine, but I'm going to take the normal align and bring it down, and that's going to straighten them out a lot. And now I think maybe I went too small with this, with these guys. Maybe somewhere in there. Let's see. Maybe somewhere in there. Maybe there's not quite enough of them. So 350. And I'm going to duplicate my random effector and apply it to my island trees and get rid of the other one so that I can get some more randomized scale. I want this around 0.7. That's a little better. Now they're a little too big. So just trying to get the scale right. Adjusting the size of these things is really how you sell the scale. Now I'm adjusting my plane effector because I feel like they're not quite reaching all the way down to the surface, so I probably just have to adjust this fall off. Cool, there we go. So now I'm seeing a few right in here. Let's flatten it out some more and drag it down. And then, you know, you can stretch these out and change the seed. Maybe get something you're a little more happy with, kind of like that. Great, and just by grouping these two together, I can duplicate this by holding Control and dragging, and it'll duplicate my scatter and apply the scatter to the correct landscape. And sometimes you just have to disable enable in order for it to pop up there. So awesome, you guys, this is great. This is already looking really cool. We have an island over here, an island over here, and now I'm just going to use a landscape without any trees on it for our furthest away background. I'm going to scale this up quite a bit. And play around with the seed. I like this one here. And do a second one. Control drag. Clone that out. Put a second one right here. Change the seed. Great, and now I can adjust exactly where I want my sunlight to be hitting. So I want it just over the edge, right in here. So if you hold Alt and click these arrows, you'll get micro adjustments, which can be very helpful when you're trying to position things like this. So there we go, I have my sun right there. That's right where I want it. And we'll do one more landscape way in the background just to hide that extra little bit right there. So we'll set that right in there. Right in there somewhere. Cool. So that's looking great. And now we have all this depth, so let's go ahead and add a fog volume. And we're going to use, start by setting the voxel size to 900. And we'll use for our size, we know that this plane is 4,000 by 4,000, so we'll go up to 6,000 by 6,000 by 6,000. Then in our medium tab, we'll set the absorption and scattering to white. And increase the volume step length, which will help it to clean up faster. Increase the scattering. Well, I don't know if I need any scattering in this one, but I'm going to decrease the density, and you'll start to see it come to life. And I don't want it to be right here. I want to drag it to start down here, and maybe it's too high up, so somewhere in there. And now you can see I'm getting all that great depth. You can see the trees, you can see these trees. Now I can tell that my front island really doesn't have enough trees, so maybe 650. That's a bit better. And now I can't see where any of my stuff is, so just go to my volume and disable it in the viewport. So we have this great island here, but it's getting a little lost, so I'm going to bring it a little bit closer. Because when it's a little bit closer, then it'll stand out in the fog a bit better. So that looks great. I want to add some glow here for my sun, so I'm going to enable the camera imager first and increase the highlight compression, which helps to give us a little bit more dynamic range. And then I'm also going to turn on the denoiser. And let's switch to path tracing. And I'm going to set my my path tracing up at 350 and 4 for the max samples and GI clamp. That'll help with speed too with this preview render. So now under the post-processing, I'm going to enable the post-processing and just play with this bloom value until I start to see some glow happening. And that looks pretty nice. Yeah, you guys, we've really made a lot of progress really quickly, so looking pretty great. I'll show you how to, now let's get our person in here. I'll show you another cool little trick. Let's just use a standard Cinema 4D guy. Let's use Backpack Man. I see him everywhere. He really makes the rounds. So I'm going to set him just right here on our surface and turn him around. Now I'm going to convert his material to an octane material. And then I'm going to use a color correction just to desaturate this texture and probably just darken it down some, so he's in silhouette fully, which is, you know, it's incorrect with the lighting, but you know, I want to see that little logo on his backpack and give everything away. So we'll scale him down and make sure he's standing up on top of our rock. We'll scale him down some more. Once he's really small, you're not really going to see all of that issues with the lighting. So I'm going to show you a cool little composition helper you can use. If I press Shift V, if I'm in this perspective viewport and I press Shift V, you see a little arrow here by the linked camera. If I toggle that down, there's a tab called Composition. If I click on Composition and then I click on Golden Spiral, this will give me a perfect rule of thirds value by using this little cool looking snail shell golden spiral graphic. And what you can do is say flip, and what I did for this render was I had my cave, and I sort of already had my cave following along this outer edge of this spiral and then spinning around and centering on where our person is. And so if I take this torus and put my man inside so that we can move them together, and just move him up so he's right there on that little dot. And maybe I can cheat this down a little because he's kind of getting lost inside the weeds. So that's good. And then I can take this and just inch it just over so we're getting there, here, and around. And if you use these composition helpers, you guys, it'll really help your compositions to fit within the golden rule. And you know, if you struggle with where to put your where exactly to put, you know, your focus objects, that can be very helpful. There's also a golden section, this triangles thing, which I don't know what it does, but I also use this crosshair a lot to get things perfectly centered. And in the crosshair, I like to just turn up the scale in crosshair here to 10,000 so that I get a perfect centering, but that's not going to be useful for this composition. For this composition, this golden spiral works really great, so that the viewer's eye will be able to pick out this guy and see everything else in the scene sort of all at once. So I'm going to increase this because I feel like there's a little edge here to 6,000 by 6,000. And you can see there was just a little bit of edge right there, and now I'm not seeing it, so that's good. So that's really cool. It looks really cool, you guys. I hope that you know, you'll be able to recreate a lot of these effects, and I'm going to just show you how to drop this planet in pretty easily in After Effects. And I'm going to do that with a keying tool. So I'll see you in After Effects. Okay guys, here we are in After Effects. So I'm just going to drag this into the timeline to create a new composition. And here's our image. I like to take the denoiser pass, set it on there, and reduce the strength to about 50. And here's our planet. If you watched my other tutorial, it shows you where you can find these planet image textures. And this is just a sphere that I lit in Cinema and rendered out so that I can use it in my compositions. So I've got it right here. What I want to do is set this to screen and maybe scale it up some, and we're going to use an effect called key light. And what I want to do is duplicate this D main. Actually, I don't want the key light here. I want it here. So I'm going to solo this so that we can see what's happening. I want the opacity set to full, first of all. And actually I don't want this. What I want is my source image. We'll get it right. So we're going to use my source image, and we're going to solo it and add key light. And I want to key out the blue. And off the bat, you know, that's not great. So you just want to feather this and sort of, you can adjust the gain. And now I can set my planet. You can see it's already tucked back behind the clouds, but it looks a little weird. So I don't actually need to have the image on top of it. All I need to do is set it to alpha inverted. And there we go. And it's tucked right in there, just behind the clouds. And so that's pretty sweet looking. I'll take you through the rest of what I would do here. Next step is I would take my Z pass, which looks like this. I'd take my Z pass and drag it into a new comp. And then I would add a white solid and set it behind so that I get the infinite depth, because Octane renders this infinite sky as black, which is not what I want, because the black is the closest elements. I want the farthest away elements to be white. So easy fix for that is to just render it with an alpha channel and drop a white solid behind it. So now I can drag my Z depth pass in, and what I'm going to do is make a new solid, and I'm going to use a fractal noise and scale it up some. Maybe change it to dynamic, and yeah, we'll go with that. We'll try that. And then I'm going to use my Z depth pass as a luma matte. And now I'm going to set my white solid blending mode to screen, and I'm going to use a mask on my solid and feather this mask way out so I get some nice looking variations in here. And now I can adjust the contrast on my noise and probably adjust the scale too. Maybe just right in there. And now what I want to do is add a tint. So I'll go to color correction and tint, and say I want to map the white to something that's up here in the sky, like this peachy color, just to give it some more depth, just a little bit of extra depth. And I think my planet's just a little bit not in the right place, so just around there. So that looks pretty cool. And next I would just add a bit of vignetting. And the levels will do it. So with this image, I just want to pull here just a tiny bit, maybe just pull here just a tiny bit, and just a tiny bit. And there you go, you guys. That's pretty much it. That's the image that I created called Bay. It's pretty much a full walkthrough for how I did all the aspects of it. So there you go. Please remember to like and subscribe my videos if you found this useful. Consider becoming a patron on my Patreon, and hit me up with suggestions with what you'd like to see the Patreon benefits for patrons, and let me know. Happy rendering, and I hope you guys all learned something. Thanks again.